Good morning. Could you please take a seat? We will start soon.
Colleagues, if you could please take your seat, we will begin momentarily.
Good morning, Honorable Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency President of the General Assembly, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished delegates. Development convened under the auspices of the Council. Before proceeding further, I invite participants
What do you see? Do you focus on hope, opportunity, equality, and abundance? Or do you only see move from one reality to another, from exclusion to inclusion, from conflict to cooperation, from fear to hope? Together, we choose hope, because hope is not passive. Partnerships are growing. They remind us that hope is built through action, resilience, and integrity. Together, we can turn hope into action, and action into lasting change.
I thank the SDG Action Campaign for producing this video. I now invite the Council to begin its considerations of Agenda Item 5, the high-level segment on transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated actions for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goals for a sustainable future for all. I will Honorable Heads of State and Government, Your Excellency Secretary General of the United Nations, and Social Council. We meet at a time when it is often easier to disagree than to agree. matters. It matters because every one of you has traveled here with a shared understanding that no country can deliver sustainable development alone. Over short-term advantage. This is precisely the purpose for which this organization was created. And that is why 11 years built together in the interest of all. Excellencies, over the past week, this forum has reviewed progress on goals 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17. Or making moderated progress. But it is not the whole story. Since 2015, extreme poverty has declined. Girls and boys have entered and completed school. Social protections now reaches more than half of the world's populations. Renewable energy is within our reach, but it is still far from the speed or the scale this moment demands and our people deserve. For too many countries, particularly while fiscal space continues to shrink and recovering while still investing in the next generations. Their ambitions has never been in doubt. Our collective this year, 36 countries are sharing their experiences. This year, of the agenda into their reviews. The voluntary national reviews reminds us that countries are confronting different realities, but asking remarkably the similar questions. Grow. There are different challenges, yet there is a shared determination and there is common purpose. No country should have to accelerate alone. This is the value of this forum. Than 4 years remaining until 2030. The challenge before us is not a shortage of ideas. It is a shortage of speed. Too many proven solutions precisely what this year's theme call on us to do, to move from ambition to transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated. In the development systems, under the motto of delivering better. Excellencies, ECOSOC responsibility is clear, not simply practical solutions and political momentum for implementation. That is ECOSOC's unique role. Our purpose is not simply to review progress. It is to help countries solve solutions. Our task is to deliver them faster, better, and smarter. Second, back the accelerators. Water, energy, infrastructures, and sustainable cities are fourth, share what works. The voluntary national reviews are not simply reports. They are a platform for practical solution, for peer learning, Excellencies, we must nurture hope and optimism among the millions, women, children, youth, and marginalized communities. Perceived not merely as an institution, but as a covenant for social progress and human dignity. Yet, hope is not strengthened by us, by every speech and every promise we make. It will judge us by the choices we make. Let us
mortality, greater access to social protection, safe drinking water, sanitation, electricity, and the internet. Faster declines in harmful practices like child marriage and exponential growth in renewable energy. Session showing that where political will exists, solutions are found and progress can be made. And all of these is true. But our millions are caught in prolonged cycles of suffering, instability, and displacement. We have just endured the 11 hottest years on record, and we are limited fiscal space. And beyond its clear impact on civilians and civilian infrastructure, the conflict in the Middle East sent the cost of fuel, fertilizers, and food skyrocketing, and disrupted global trade, transportation, and navigational rights and freedoms in accordance with international law must be respected. Excellencies, our mission is clear: to accelerate progress at scale and speed. By investing in the proven tools of poverty reduction, from education to universal health coverage, by grounding progress in human rights, and protecting our planet through climate action, biodiversity, conservation, and a just transition. Access to safely manage drinking water and sanitation services. But the world is far from meeting SDG 6. About beyond our hydrological means, driven by overconsumption, pollution, and climate change, our world is using fresh water faster than it can be replenished, with permanent, irreversible resources to build accountable, equitable, and inclusive institutions that secure clean water and sanitation for all, manage conflict demand this year's UN Water Conference will be a critical opportunity to drive collective action on this issue. On affordable and clean energy, the world now has an off-ramp away from fossil fuels. Power added globally is already cheaper than the lowest cost fossil fuel alternatives. And clean energy now attracts twice as much investment as fossil fuels. Of the world's best solar potential. And many developing countries face exorbitant borrowing costs. We need to reduce the cost of capital that depend on fossil fuels throughout the transition. On industry, innovation and infrastructure, we see enormous opportunities for digital tools like artificial intelligence to drive development, along with the capacity to build the infrastructure and the skills needed to share in those gains. And it means technology serving humanity, not the other way around. Countries, particularly the developing ones. Early this month in Geneva, we convened the first global dialogue on artificial intelligence to make further progress on these issues. All data centers with renewable energy by 2030. On sustainable cities and communities, we need action to address the global and sustainable financing to scale up urban infrastructure and services. And marginalized groups must be part of the planning process for adequate on deck. Businesses, development banks, innovators, civil society, community leaders, and young people. And it requires South-South cooperation.
To close the SDG financing gap, which now stands at over $4 trillion annually. Debt, than investing in their people. And development assistance has suffered its steepest fall on record. mobilize domestic resources, including by tackling illicit financial flows, and channeling them to areas of greatest need. And concessional finance, and enabling them to take more risk where it matters most. Every public dollar must unlock many more in private investment. Borrowers platform launched this year. And we need to increase the voice and participation of developing countries, reforming even in this era of division, multilateralism is producing results. From the Pact for the Future to the Seville commitment, the Doha political possible, and our growing progress on data and measurement is giving us a much stronger evidence base for countries to better target their development efforts. Let's keep the Agenda 2030's vision alive. Let's make these final years count. Thank you.
I thank the Secretary General for his statement. I now invite the President of the General Assembly, Her Excellency Annalena Baerbock, to address the meeting.
I'm calling on you to keep your optimism in this institution's ability to deliver, to choose hope, to choose left. Delivering on the Agenda 2030 will not be easy. But our United Nations, this House, was not built for the easy tasks. It was to choose the right track at the crossroads. In a situation in which multilateralism itself is under strain, it is upon us And when we work together in this spirit of our charter, we deliver. We have seen that lesson, especially in one of this year's focal SDG, SDG 7 on affordable and clean energy. As a sin. Then came a crucial crossroad. After failure, the Paris Agreement in 2015. And 8 years later, which is actually nothing in diplomacy, the world agreed to transition away from fossil fuels in energy systems in a just, and it boosted the global electricity access in general, which reached 92% in 2024. And this, in concrete again, means no focus on at this forum, SDG 9, on digital infrastructure to expand. As without electricity, there would not be any internet access. Reach the majority of people. But when delivering on the SDG 9, now farmers can check their weather data and a clinic sending information faster than any road could carry it. Showing that while progress is not automatic or easy or always fast enough, it is always possible when true leadership shows their will to act. DNA is to explore, even in the darkest hour, the chance of every crisis. And we have seen the chance also of the current fragmented geopolitical times in this room over the last months. When possible because some simply refuse to take action, there is also no need to wait anymore for the last to move. The Independent International Scientific Panel on Artificial Intelligence and the Global Summit on AI Governments last week. We even moved after years of stalemate on the beyond GDP debate because some member states choose action and frontrunners joined cross-regional forces to deliver on the civilian commitments. In doing so, this House demonstrated the enduring relevance of our Charter 80 years later. And for sure, our founders did not foresee back then, 80 years ago, artificial intelligence. They didn't even have a computer, nor would they really debate climate change. Yet, they did foresee a fundamental truth. Issues that cross borders need multilateral solutions. And that is why my call to you, echoing the Pact for the Future, is this. Keep working together. Keep believing that we are better together, especially in these fragmented times. Share your best practices in advancing the SDGs. The solutions are all out there, and they are being implemented. Choose build helping the momentum we need to deliver for the people we serve. To that end, Excellencies, dear ministers, this forum is a place to share the best practices and to work together to learn from one another. Across the goals under review, we can see what progress looks like when it reaches daily life and when we understand and build on the interconnectivity of these goals. For example, on SDG 6, clean water and sanitation. Since 2015, nearly 1 billion have gained access to safely managed drinking water, and more than 1 billion to safely managed sanitation. And that means not only fewer children drinking dump water that will make them sick, it also means fewer hours lost of children, especially girls, carrying water instead of going to school. And for sure, none of this is easy and none of this is enough. Not when billions still remain excluded from the progress we have made. It's 4 years. But the answers are all out there. The answer is sitting there on the balcony. Civil society, stakeholder participation, who are implementing already on the ground. And the applause is well deserved for those who are doing it every day without any coverage in the headlines. I just learned about one initiative where private sector, supported by some multi-development banks and civil society, are doing the debt swaps. We are still here in the rooms as well, how South-South and Triangle Cooperation can not only find agreements on cross-regional water management in the light of climate effects, but by this also to make our own house more focused, more coherent, and able to deliver for the people. So these days are also our chance to align this forum with our UNAID reform debate, to join our efforts for the last mile, as giving up is not an option. And as we know that even partial having more than 500 million people in the danger of malnutrition and even dying. And yes, we know that the time is very short, but, and I guess many of you are looking towards tomorrow and the day after, as we are still in the football season, this crazy World Cup has not only shown us that if everybody plays by the rules, and if the rules are followed, we are always better together, but that this crazy World Cup has also told us very clearly one thing: to never give up at minute 80. How many games that looked lost were actually turned in the 90th minute, or even just moment can change the world. It is up to us to play the last minutes, the last 4 years together. Always
I thank the President of the General Assembly for her statement. I now invite participants for children and youth to deliver the statement.
Behalf of the Major Group for Children and Youth, or MGCY, the designated youth constituency at the UN, engaging more than 20,000 youth organizations in over 50 UN processes. But I also speak as a 17-year-old honor of carrying the countless voices and messages in all their diversity to this hall today. But the children and youth I represent are in lines for jobs that were promised but never realized. They continue to be silenced and targeted by ongoing conflicts across the world. On the future of multilateralism, increasingly fragmented multilateral system. And led to the launch of our common agenda. Which is mortgaging our generation. We call for the launch of an intergovernmental process national financial institutions and provide young people We further call for UNAT peace and security any reforms or mergers to be protected and further strengthened. The proposed human rights group must reinforce reproductive health and rights. We also echo the concern integration of citizen-generated and disaggregated so close to the people it is meant to serve. So-called efficiency that severs this organization from young people, women, indigenous peoples, access to safe water and sanitation, while ensuring meaningful youth engagement through a dedicated youth forum at the 2026 UN Water Conference. Under SDG 7, we call for just inclusive digital development and stronger global governance of artificial intelligence. Under SDG 11, we call for renewed implementation of the new urban agenda to build inclusive view of the SDGs starting next year, and further institutionalizes the role of major groups and other stakeholders and enhances the voluntary national review cycle, reflecting many of the priorities long delivered. Youth constituencies co-designed the Global Youth Investment Platform, revitalized the UN Youth Fund, and are working alongside the Secretariat to produce the second progress study mechanism. Excellencies, this is the difference between consultation and partnership. In these examples, financial architecture under Action 47, the Security Council reform on Actions 39 and 40, and Action 50 on credit rating agencies, and Action 54 an integration of these metrics under the debt and economic frameworks. Furthermore, as the 2028 stocktake for the pact quickly approaches, we need a UN must institutionalize meaningful youth and rights holders' engagement across all pillars of its peace and security, sustainable development, human rights, and humanitarian action. Financial support to and systemically consider the recommendations emerging from over 30 youth constituencies and more than 20 recurring youth forums across UN processes, which includes the is focused on efficiency. The youth forum is a primary case that demonstrates the UN system delivering as one. Let us not also forget salaries without funding, without recognition. We therefore call for the establishment of a local community fund for sustainable development to provide direct support years remain until 2030, and barely one-third of the measurable targets of Agenda 2030 are on track. Arms expenditure is rising, with thousands of children, youth, bear as solidarity and international cooperation decline. This gap will not and never close on its own. Dear friends, the United Nations, as we look towards the next 80 years of the UN, let us remember the demands that you hear today from young people are not a wish list. It is the essential of war. They meant us, young people. And therefore, when history asks what became of the determination at 80,
I thank Mr. Choi for his statement. Honorable heads of state and government, honorable ministers, that concludes the high-level opening. Please remain seated while the podium is rearranged before we proceed with the general debate. I now invite the Council to begin its considerations of Agenda Item 5, Sub-Item A. Distinguished delegates, before I give the floor to the first speaker on my list, I would like to remind delegation that the time limit for the intervention is 5 minutes for the and after 15-second grace period for the statement at the ministerial level and above. I apologize in Now I give the floor to the first speaker, Her Excellency Carolina Cose, Vice President of the Oriental Republic of
Buenos días.
Good morning. Mr. President of ECOSOC, Lok less than 5 years from the 2030
the daily reality of millions of people continues. And diagnosis is not what's missing. Decisions into results and results into concrete outcomes. We know that the 2030 Agenda is is not an abstract agenda. We need to have a more caring, humane world. That is the strength of democracy. We need to restore trust in the ability of institutions because the common risks shared by the world cannot be overcome by humanity if we do not reduce them, even when if we is possible. The recognition of water and sanitation as human rights. We have an electric matrix which is significantly based on renewable forces. Firmly held belief that no country can meet the SDGs alone. In my country, and the microphone's been cut off.
Minister and Minister of Finance and Economic Development of Tuvalu.
Enter the final stretch to 2030. The question before us is no longer whether we know what needs to be done. We do. The real question is whether we have the collective will for our people. Every new crisis diverts scarce resources away from education, health, infrastructure, and sustainable development towards immediate survival. At the global level, the international community must move beyond declarations and deliver meaningful reform. We need accessible climate finance and capacity building so that countries can build lasting resilience and drive their own sustainable development. These are not special requests. To achieve them. For Tuvalu, delivering better means delivering together, with urgency, with fairness, and with genuine partnership.
I thank His Excellency the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance and
to promote peace and shared prosperity while protecting the planet. That promise is being severely tested. There is a clear gap between our commitment and their implementation. Progress is examined honestly. This edition comes at a pivotal moment in a year where the conferences of party of the 3 Rio Conventions are and biodiversity loss. The EU stands by the 2030 agenda and stresses the urgent need for accelerated actions to reverse these alarming trends. the full realization of human rights and gender equality. Review. First, the availability and integrated water resources management with special attention to the impact of women and girls. The EU calls for a strong position on water as a key cross-cutting element process on water, taking into account the ongoing UN aid reform. Second, progress on the SDG 7 has been notable, but only a small regional disparities persist, and many development countries face systematic barriers to inclusive and sustainable industrialization. Countries must boost investment housing shortages, high energy cost and poverty. Advancing SDG 11 requires focusing on affordable, sustainable, decent quality and inclusive housing. And private finance at scale, strengthening domestic resource mobilization, address debt, risk, advance reforms on the international financial architecture, and green transition. In closing, the EU strongly supports the high-level political forum as the central UN platform for review and acceleration of the
I thank Her Excellency, the European Commissioner for Environment, Water Resilience, and Competitive Circular Economy. Just and inclusive societies, to be followed by Bangladesh.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, this statement is on behalf of the Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just and Inclusive Societies. As conflict and and be anchored in multilateralism and cooperation. So what are the actions and enabling conditions required to change course? Peace, justice, inclusion, and effective institutions are widely acknowledged as enablers of progress across the SDGs, critical to making development truly sustainable in a disrupted world. National development plans and voluntary national reviews reflect that action on SDG 16 has practically dividends across development efforts. This is clear when looking at the SDGs review this year. Energy transition without inclusive governance can weaken sustainability and deepen environmental laws to protect and prevent pollution in water. Reduced levels of violence are associated with de-risking public and private investment, including in infrastructure development and inclusive by 70% or greater. This is done by addressing both the manifestations of violence and the human, social, economic, and development factors that drives it. In line with the Sevilla commitment. SDG 16 supports the development of adaptive and resilient governance systems that are able to anticipate, respond, and address shocks, including those related to climate change and environmental degradation, while mitigating their impact anchored in human rights. It's how societies manage risk, build resilience, catalyze inclusive growth, and addresses inequality within and between countries. In the context of evolving global order and significant UN reform, trust is a premium. Multilateralism rooted in the UN Charter and principle of SG 16 can help build this trust to more effectively deliver change across UN pillars. Cross-regional coalitions, such as the Pathfinders, and initiatives support and reflect that inclusive multilateral cooperation, highlighting the need for partnership between member states, civil society, and others, particularly in area of shrinking civic space. Finally, we call upon all countries to prioritize investment in peace, justice, and inclusive institutions. This includes strengthening transparency, accountability, and efforts to combat corruption, ensuring that resources reach those who need them the most, that development gains are inclusive and sustainable. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of International Development of Norway, speaking on behalf of the Pathfinders for Peaceful, Just, and Inclusive Society. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Rashid Mahmoud Titumir, Honorable Advisor at the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning of Bangladesh, speaking on behalf of the least developed countries, to be followed by Solomon Island.
Mr. President, Ministers, Excellencies, I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of the Group of Least Developed Countries. The group reaffirms its unwavering commitment to the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the Doha Programme of Action, which together constitutes the guiding framework for advancing sustainable, resilient development and smooth graduation in LDCs. Mr. President, as we enter the final stretch to 2030, progress towards the SDGs remain alarmingly off track. For the LDCs, the situation is even more critical. our development efforts. These challenges not only undermine implementation of the 2030 agenda, but also put at risk the achievement of the DPOA, including its goal enabling additional LDCs to achieve sustainable and irreversible graduation by 2031. Currently, 14 LDCs are at different stages of the graduation process, continue to require sustained international support due to unprecedented political, macroeconomic, environmental, and external shocks. Bangladesh and Nepal have requested a 3-year extension of their preparatory period until November 2029. For graduating LDCs, navigating complex domestic and global challenges, the additional time is a strategic necessity to advance macroeconomic stability, implement smooth transition strategy, and strengthen critical reforms. In this context, the effective implementation of the DPOA is essential to addressing the structural constraints facing the LDCs and strengthening resilience, productive capacity, and long-term sustainable development. The DPOA midterm review, to be held next year in Doha, provides a critical opportunity to strengthen global partnership and accelerate implementation of agreed commitments. The group urges participation at the level of heads of state and government, ministers, and leaders of international financial institutions and development partners to ensure that the midterm review produces transformational and implementable outcomes. Excellencies, the group wishes to present 5-pronged priority agenda for urgent action. First, adequate, predictable, and affordable concessional financing must be significantly scaled up to address the mounting debt vulnerabilities alongside greater investment in education, health, productive capacity, resilient infrastructure, creating jobs, eradicating poverty, increasing social security, and essential services. Second, the international financial architecture must be reformed sustainable debt solutions and more equitable financing arrangements. Third, climate finance must be accessible, predictable, and commensurate with vulnerability. Support for adaptation, resilience building, energy transition, and the loss and damage fund should remain additional, adequate, and readily accessible. Enhanced international cooperation is also essential to strengthen energy security through investment in clean energy and resilient infrastructure. Fourth, the international community should preserve and expand market access for LDCs by reversing protectionist trends and ensuring transparent, simplified, and development-friendly rules of origin. Fifth, stronger international cooperation is needed to bridge digital and technological divides through enhanced technology transfer, capacity building, and digital transformation, enabling LDCs to harness innovation and accelerate sustainable development. In closing, Mr. President,
Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. Excellency, mic is already caught. I thank the Honorable Advisor at the Ministry of Finance and Ministry of Planning of Bangladesh speaking on behalf of the least developed countries. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Peter Kenny Loria.
Thank you, Chair. I have the honor to guided by our 2050 strategy for the Blue Pacific continent. Forum members continue to advance as a foundation for health, dignity, and resilience. The 9th Pacific Water and Water Ministries meeting in Solomon Islands reaffirmed the leaders' commitment to strengthening climate-resilient water and sanitation systems, expanding sustainable financing, improving utility performance, and building workforce capacity to address persistent access gaps and growing climate pressures. On SDG 7, we continue to advance a dual agenda of immediate energy security and long-term energy transformation. At the 6th Pacific Regional Energy and Transport Ministers meeting in Papua New Guinea earlier this year, members reaffirmed their collective commitment to a 100% renewable energy future and a just transition to a fossil fuel-free Pacific, while also acknowledging differing national circumstances and pathways with the Manubada call to action. At the same time, recognizing the Pacific's continued resilience on imported fuels and exposure to global supply disruption, forum members have invoked the Bikitawa Declaration and established a regional response mechanism to respond to the region's emerging energy crisis. On SDG 9, we, the Pacific, continue with the establishment of the Pacific Resilience Facility, a Pacific-owned financing mechanism supporting locally led resilience investments and climate and disaster preparedness. Members are also advancing regional initiatives to strengthen financial connectivity to enhance economic participation and resilience. On SDG 11, building safe, resilient, and sustainable communities remains a regional priority. Pacific countries are strengthening community resilience through locally led climate adaptation and disaster preparedness initiatives. This includes nature-based solutions to reduce food and climate risks, alongside investments in resilient infrastructure and urban planning. On SDG 17, through regional cooperation, coordinated responses to fuel security challenges, and collaboration with development partners and international institutions, forum member countries continue to value Pacific-led solutions and collective actions. If I may just quickly turn to a national statement. For us, Solomon Islands aims to expand access to clean drinking water and sanitation, but water services are lagging behind population growth, and the El Nino experience in the region is expected to further reduce access. Mr. Chair, strong and enduring partnerships are essential to mobilizing the means of implementation. Access to concessional finance, technical assistance, capacity building, and technology transfer as critical to progress to the SDGs. Chair, we believe that the Agenda 2030 was our collective vision to leave no one behind, and opportunities remain for shared wins in the realization of this vision. With only 3 years to 2030, the stakes are higher, and the call for action is incumbent on all of us. This is the responsibility we owe to humanity. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister for National Planning and Development Corporations of Solomon Island, speaking on behalf of the Pacific Islands Forum. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Sandra Paulimon, Minister of Planning and External Corporations of Haiti, speaking on behalf of the Caribbean Community, CARICOM.
Mr. President, Excellencies, good morning. I'm honored to deliver this statement on behalf of the 14 member states of the Caribbean Community. I also ally those remarks with the statements delivered by Palau on behalf of the Alliance of Small Island States and Uruguay on behalf of the G77 and China. We congratulate Jamaica and St. Kitts and Nevis on the presentation of the voluntary national reviews. This presentation demonstrates our government's commitment to achieving sustainable development and leaving no one behind. Mr. President, these are extraordinary times. Last October, one of the most powerful Atlantic storms on record swept through the Caribbean, causing severe damage, loss of lives, and disruption of the livelihoods. It was a stark reminder of the structural vulnerabilities of seeds in the Caribbean. In June, the UN Secretary General issued an urgent warning on El Nino for the world to treat it as the urgent climate warning it is, and underscored that this condition will pour fuel on the fire of a warming world. This grave situation means that our presence here cannot merely be about participating in this forum, but to issue a clarion call, a call for renewed commitment and concerted action to overcome the pressing challenges we face. It is imperative to recall that among fires in Europe and sweltering heat in our heartland, seed concerns are not just seasonal, but rather a matter of persistent vulnerabilities with interconnected global consequences. Juxtaposed against this backdrop is the 36% implementation rate of the Sustainable Development Goals. We see gaps that demand acceleration and implementation of international agreements, including the Paris Agreement, the Sevilla Commitment, and Doha Plan of Action. Excellencies, in 3 years, the midterm review of the Antigua and Barbuda Agenda for Seed ABAs will provide an important opportunity to assess progress, identify lessons learned, and strengthen implementation for the remainders of the decade. The ABA's M&E framework is welcome as a practical tool to support this process. We urge greater emphasis on ABAs as strategic development framework to guide national planning, investment, and international cooperation. CARICOM recognizes the Secretary General's efforts to establish institutional arrangement for the necessary operationalization of the multidimensional vulnerability index. Financing and post-disaster support. CARICOM also aligns the Seed Center of Excellence together with its flagship initiative, the Highland Investment Forum, the Global Data Hub, and the Debt Sustainability Support Service as critical mechanism for accelerating ABA's implementation. We encourage our development partners to support this initiative for full realization of the benefits to seeds. As we prepared for COP31 and COP17, CARICOM reiterates that the Paris Agreement enshrining 1.5 degrees Celsius as the legally binding temperature goal. as recently reinforced by the ICJ. We call for any special effort to ensure protection for the special circumstances of seeds. Recognition of our unique needs in finance, capacity building, and technical support is vital to avoid eroding the principle of equity within the UNFCCC and the UNCBD processes. Mr. President, CARICOM is committed to working across all UN processes and with all partners, including forging new partnerships on strategic initiatives to advance the sustainable development of our people. I thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, the Minister of Planning and External Cooperation of Haiti, speaking on behalf of the CARICOM. And now I give the floor to His Excellency Ahmad Mohammad Tawfiq Rustom, Minister of Planning and Economic Development of Egypt.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. As we enter the final stretch of the decade of action, this high-level political forum comes at a critical moment. Amid growing global uncertainty, sustainable development requires more than ambition. It demands resilience, it demands stronger action, it demands partnership and collective action. Egypt is pleased to present its fourth voluntary national review at a time when resilience has become the cornerstone of sustainable development. Since our previous review in 2021, successive global shocks have tested countries' capacities to sustain development goals. Despite these challenges, Egypt has remained firmly committed to implementing the 2030 Agenda through a people-centered and nationally owned development model, underpinned by evidence-based policymaking, integrated planning, and strong partnerships. Our progress is reflected across the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly the 5 goals under view for this year. On SDG 6, as one of the world's most water-scarce countries, Egypt continues to strengthen water security through integrated water resource management, water reuse, desalination, and optimizing other non-conventional water resources under the Egypt Water Strategy 2050. On SDG 7, we are accelerating investments in renewable energy and in clean hydrogen, positioning Egypt as a regional hub for clean and sustainable energy. On SDG 9, unprecedented investments in transport, logistics, and digital infrastructure, reinforcing Egypt's role as a regional hub and a logistic hub as well. On SDG 11, comprehensive urban development and the expansion of new sustainable cities are improving quality of life. Under SDG 17, Egypt has strengthened partnerships through the launch of its integrated national financing strategy, expanding cooperation with development partners and the private sector to finance development. Excellencies, our experience reaffirms that sustainable development is most successful when supported by integrated planning, by resilient financing, effective institutions, and by strong partnerships. Above all, placing people at the center of development and empowering national ownership and remain the strongest drivers of lasting progress. Egypt remains fully committed to working with all partners to build a more resilient, inclusive, and sustainable future. Indeed, as Excellency President of the General Assembly mentioned, lessons from the World Cup tells every minute counts. Let's keep the momentum till the 79th minute and beyond. These lessons are indeed telling us it has to be while sticking to the rules of the game and by fair play. Together, let's ensure it's fair opportunity for all and that none and no one is left behind and that we're all partnering for a better future. Thank you so much.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of Planning and Economic Development of Egypt. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Anufala, Minister for National Planning and Monitoring of Papua New Guinea.
This year's forum theme aligns with Papua New Guinea's Medium-Term Development Plan 4, Vision 2050, and the Reset PNG 50 Agenda. While progress on the SDGs remain uneven, as highlighted in our second voluntary national review, Papua New Guinea remains firmly committed to achieving the 2030 agenda despite climate vulnerabilities, financing gaps, and capacity constraints. Mr. President, the SDGs 6, 7, 9, 11, and 17 are central to inclusive growth, resilience, and national development. For us, SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation are priorities, but progress remains challenging. We are operationalizing the National Wash Authority, strengthening district planning, and expanding WASH urban data platform to deliver climate-resilient water and sanitation services to communities, schools, and health facilities. On SDG 7, 5 renewable energy policies covering hydropower, solar, wind, bioenergy, and geothermal resources were advanced in 2025. Our energy transmission assessment with IRENA provides a 10-year roadmap to expand rural energy access and renewable energy. On SDG 9, we recognize that resilient infrastructure and digital connectivity are the engines for our national transformation. Through Connect PNG, we are linking remote communities to markets and services while advancing digital transformation through Service Pass and the Puk Digital Connectivity Initiative. On SDG 11, Papua New Guinea is striving for safer, better planned, and more inclusive urban centers. Following the National Housing Policy launch in 2025, we are implementing 21 indicators for sustainable urbanization. Hosting the Pacific Urban Forum 7 this year reaffirms our commitment to housing reform, green urban standards, and stronger municipal governance. Excellencies, SDG 17 remains fundamental to our success. Partnerships are the foundations of our sustainable development. In 2025, Papua New Guinea and the United Nations systems with more than 50 partners delivered a 95 million joint work plan.
I think, Honorable Minister, I think mic is already caught. Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I would like to remind again that there is a time limit for the intervention is 5 minutes for the statements made on behalf. His Excellency Edgar Moyo, Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare of Zimbabwe. Excellency, you have the floor now.
Thank you, Mr. President. With less than 4 years remaining to achieve the 2030 agenda, Zimbabwe reaffirms the importance of urgent and transformative action. Success will not only depend on national action, but also on predictable financing, technology transfer, and strengthened international partnerships. In that regard, my delegation supports ongoing efforts to strengthen both the Economic and Social Council and the high-level political forum. The HLPF must be empowered with the mandate, predictability, and flexibility required to accelerate implementation and sustain momentum towards sustainable development goals. Mr. President, despite a challenging global environment, Zimbabwe remains committed to delivering tangible progress across the SDGs. Access to safe drinking water now exceeds 81%. While climate-induced droughts and extreme weather continue to pose significant challenges, we are scaling up investment in integrated water resources management and climate-resilient infrastructure to safeguard this progress. affordable, reliable, and modern energy is central to industrialization, job creation, and improved quality of life. Through ongoing investments, an additional 900 megawatts have been added to the national grids. The Zimbabwe Renewable Energy Fund is expanding access to clean and sustainable energy. My government continues to invest in resilient infrastructure, industrialization, and innovation as key drivers of economic transformation and regional integration. Urbanization presents both opportunities and challenges. Through the devolution agenda, Zimbabwe is pursuing integrated urban development. As co-chair of the group of Friends of UN Habitat, Sustainable Urbanization and the New Urban Agenda, Mr. President, national efforts alone will not deliver the 2030 agenda. The means of implementation remain decisive. In conclusion, Mr. President, goals and to ensure that the promise of the 2030 agenda becomes a reality for all. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency the Minister of Public Service, Labor and Social Welfare of Zimbabwe. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Igor Serbeni, Minister of the Environment of Czech Republic.
Dear Mr. President, I would like to answer. I dare to believe that humanity is not enemy of the nature. I dare to believe that free society can protect the environment better than society built on commands and restrictions. I dare to believe that prosperity and environmental protection are not enemies. They are partners. Yet today, we are often told that we must choose between economic growth and sustainability, choose between industry and the nature, choose between prosperity and responsibility. I reject this choice because it's a false choice. Sustainability is not the opposite of prosperity. True sustainability depends on prosperity. And that is why I believe sustainability is, and its a core, a conservative value. The very word conservative means to conserve, to preserve. But conservatism also stands for another fundamental value. It's a freedom. Because without freedom, there is no innovation. Without innovation, there are no solutions. In my country, the Czech Republic, I have seen many projects that have shown me that sustainability succeeds when it's and in the matter. We are 10th greatest country in the world in sustainable development goals. People care about the environment most when they are offered solutions, not guilt and restrictions. Build. Ronald Reagan once reminded us that freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. The same truth is of responsibility. Every generation must choose it and pass it on. So let
thank His Excellency, the Ministers of the Environment of Czech Republic. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Dara O'Brien, Minister of Climate, Environment and Energy of Ireland.
Comes at a really critical time as we continue our collective journey towards 2030 and as we seek to urgently accelerate implementation of We drew experience in 2023 when, alongside Qatar, we co-facilitated negotiations on the SDG Summit Political Declaration. As we have seen in the Sustainable Development Goals report of 2026, just released last week, including poor economic growth, growing inequalities, high indebtedness, conflict and fragility, climate change vulnerability, and severe weather-related shocks. It is, friends, unacceptable that an estimated 826 million people live in extreme poverty today. Agreed last year. It means strengthening inclusive partnerships and focusing on impacts by government, the UN system and civil society, the private sector and unrepresented groups committed to redoubling our whole of government and whole of society efforts in advancing the SDGs at home. We will also redouble on our term. President, as we approach the pivotal SDG summit next year, it is time to turn the aspirations of Agenda 2030 into achievements, to turn commitments into results, ensuring throughout that no one is left behind. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister for Climate, Environment, Energy of Ireland. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Bakit Shidikov, Minister of Economy and Commerce of the Kyrgyz Republic.
Sustainable development would be steady and irreversible. The past decade has taught us otherwise. Conflicts, climate change, disruptions to global supply chain, widening in technological divides and growing debt burdens have shown how quickly development gains can be reversed, especially in developing countries. Today, our task is not only to accelerate development, but also to protect the development gains that the world has already achieved. I believe this has become the new frontier of the 2030 agenda. It requires trust in institutions, trust between nations, and trust in multilateral cooperation. The experience of the Kyrgyz Republic demonstrates that such trust can deliver real results. Between 21 and 25, poverty in Kyrgyzstan declined from 33% to 24%, while the economy grew by an average of around 10% annually. These achievements remind us that sustainable development is ultimately measured not by economic statistics alone, but by better lives and greater opportunities for more people. Excellencies, for mountainous countries like Kyrgyzstan, climate change is not a future risk. It is a present reality. The retreat of glaciers threatens water security, food production, and energy systems far beyond mountain regions. Mountains are not only among the first victims of climate change, they must also become part of the solution. In 2027, Kyrgyzstan will host the second Global Mountain Summit, Bishkek +25. We invite all member states and partners to join us in building practical partnerships for the sustainable development of mountain regions. Mr. President, this year the United Nations entrusted the Kyrgyz Republic for the first time in its history with serving as a non-permanent member of the Security Council. As a country that peacefully resolved border issues through dialogue and respect for international law, Kyrgyzstan will continue to promote preventive diplomacy, peaceful settlement of disputes, and effective multilateral cooperation, while advocating for the interest of developing countries, including landlocked and mountain states. Excellencies, the Sustainable Development Goals are more than a global agenda, they are a shared promise. Keeping that promise will require financing, innovation, and technology, but above all, it will require trust. Trust that dialogue is stronger than division, trust that no country should be left behind, and trust that together we can protect the progress we can achieve and build a more resilient, more just, and more.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of Economy and Commerce of the Kyrgyz Republic. Now I give the floor to His Excellency, Juras Blanar, Minister of Foreign and European Affairs of Slovakia.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, the 2026 High-Level Political Forum convenes at the critical junction, just 1 year of the HED 2027 SDG Summit. In the Pact for the Future, we committed to accelerating the implementation of 2030 Agenda, yet progress remained too slow. One of the greatest opportunities to accelerate the progress towards the SDGs lies in the responsible use of new technologies and artificial intelligence. Mr. President, Slovakia submitted its voluntary national reviews in 2018 and 2023. With regard to this year's focus, I would like to highlight Slovakia's priorities for the agenda of this forum. Firstly, under SDG 7, nuclear energy plays a vital role in assuring affordable, clean and low-carbon electricity. Thanks largely to nuclear power, Slovakia has one of the lowest carbon footprints in electricity generation and plans to further develop this sector. Secondly, under SDG 9, Slovakia is strongly committed to make a transition to a circular, sustainable and low-carbon economy by 2040. Thirdly, under SDG 11, Slovakia supports the Sustainable Urban Resilience for the Next Generation initiative and will host a hub providing expert support for regional development, infrastructure, reconstruction, and energy-efficient housing in Ukraine. And finally, achieving SDG 17 requires strong partnership, drawing on own democratic and economic transformation. Slovakia's development cooperation focuses on sharing particular experience through local ownership, mutual learning, and tailored solution. Mr. President, to strengthen policy coherence, the Slovak government has established a strategic coordination center within the government office, together with a coordination unit across ministries. We also welcome the report of the high-level expert group on beyond GDP. Slovakia has developed a national framework for measuring well-being, which will help guide our national development strategy through 2040. And finally, Slovakia supports all ongoing UN reforms and remains firmly committed to effective multilateralism, respect for international law, and the principles of the United Nations Charter. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency the Minister of Foreign Affairs and European Affairs of Slovakia. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Asmund Grover Aukrust, Minister of International Development of Norway.
Thank you, Chair. With less than 5 years until 2030, we need policies that really could deliver results. With political commitment, stronger partnership, and a willingness to reform, we can still make meaningful progress on the 2030 agenda. Norway therefore support a stronger and more effective United Nations. Let me highlight from the Norwegian government 3 areas of concern. And national strategical system in partner countries. The decline in development assistance must stop. Norway will continue to maintain at a high level on official development assistance. Partnership really matters. As resources become more limited, we need not only new sources of finance, but also new ideas and new solutions. Governmental, international organizations, civil society, academia, and the private sector all have a role to play in this. There is today not enough private investment. The private sector is a key partner for sustainable development, for job creation, and for economic growth. Second, strong governance and institutions are key. Norway supports countries in this. Trust, accountability, and effective public institutions are essential for mobilizing and managing resources, as well as reducing inequality. Good governance also helps attract investments. Businesses need the rule of law and predictable regulatory frameworks. Fighting corruption remains a priority. Transparency, integrity, and accountability are essential in addressing illicit financial flow. Third, we must safeguard effective multilateralism and the rule-based international order. A strong multilateral system is vital for global stability, trust, and for sustainable development. Reform is therefore urgent. A stronger and more efficient United Nations is a core interest for all of us. The UN80 initiative should strengthen UN's ability to deliver as one in support of the 2030 agenda. Our shared international rules protect human rights, civic space, and gender equality. They remain essential if we are to leave no one behind and to make real progress. Thank you, Chair.
I thank His Excellency Minister of International Development of Norway. I now give the floor to His Excellency Mr. Gregor Robertson, Minister of Housing and Infrastructure of Canada, and also Minister responsible for Pacific Economic Development, Canada.
Monsieur le Président,
President,
distinguished delegates, I begin by acknowledging we are gathered on the traditional territory of the Lenape people. We honor their stewardship of this land. Indigenous knowledge remains vital to protecting the lands, waters, and ecosystems on which all communities depend. This world is facing profound challenges. The rising cost of living, climate impacts, conflict, and uncertainty are testing our institutions and our shared purpose. N'oublions pas, la résilience n'est
Let us not forget that resilience is not built through isolation, but through cooperation based on common values.
Vancouver, I spoke in this building as the world adopted the Sustainable Development Goals. And that experience reinforced a lesson I have carried throughout my public service, that we can't turn the tide on the climate crisis without local action. Canada reaffirms its commitment to multilateral cooperation and the shared values embodied in the Sustainable Development Goals. Accelerating progress on these goals is key to strengthening our collective resilience. Sustainable development must include people at every stage of life. Older people are pillars of our communities as caregivers, mentors, workers, and volunteers, while youth bring the hope and innovation needed for a sustainable future. Canada remains committed to ensuring people of all ages can participate fully in society. From my years as a mayor and working in cities around the world, I know that aligning social policies with housing and infrastructure planning helps build connection, resilient and sustainable cities that work for everyone. In Canada, we are advancing the Sustainable Development Goals by working with our Indigenous communities to advance clean drinking water in their communities, delivering affordable housing using public land, flexible financing and partnerships, expanding access to reliable and affordable public transit and clean transportation. We are expanding clean, reliable electricity and connecting more Indigenous and remote communities to high-speed internet. Internationally, Canada is harnessing our development, trade, and financing tools to build mutually beneficial partnerships that deliver lasting benefits for both partner countries and Canadians while maintaining our steadfast commitment to poverty reduction. As President Baerbock said this morning, as our World Cup wraps up, we are into stoppage time now. The 2030 whistle is imminent. Canada is committed to working with all countries to achieve these essential goals and level up our ambitions as future challenges emerge. En cette période d'incertitude mondiale,
At this period of global uncertainty, our shared values remain a powerful source of strength.
partnership over isolation, opportunity over cynicism, and local action in support of global ambition, we can achieve our global goals together and build a resilient, prosperous future for all. Thank you. Merci.
I thank His Excellency the Minister of Housing and
Mr. President, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, allow me to begin by thanking previous speakers for sharing their valuable experiences and practical approaches to advancing the Sustainable Development Goals. The interventions remind us that we share a common responsibility and ambition to deliver better outcomes for our people by the year 2030. Rwanda is pleased to contribute to this exchange by sharing some lessons for our own development journey. Our experience has shown that accelerating the SDGs is possible when national priorities are supported by sound policies, effective institutions, and investments that generate lasting economic and social impact. Over the past years, Rwanda has made significant economic and social progress. Between 2021 and 2025, Rwanda's economy grew by an average of 9% annually. Poverty declined from 39.8% in 2017 to 27.4% in 2024, while life expectancy increased to 70.2 years by 2025. These achievements represent more than economic indicators. They reflect improved livelihoods, greater opportunities, stronger resilience, and progress across multiple SDGs. They demonstrate that reducing poverty contributes to better outcomes in health, education, nutrition, decent work, and inclusive growth. The progress has been driven by strong national ownership, long-term planning, investments in human capital, and strengthened institutions for effective delivery. Mr. President, Rwanda's experience offers 3 practical lessons. First, prioritizing investment in essential services delivers impact. Second, sustainable transformation requires investment in productivity, innovation, and private sector participation. Third, achieving the SDGs requires better financing, especially strengthening domestic resource mobilization, improving public investment efficiency, and using innovative approaches that leverage private sector resources. Excellencies, achieving the 2030 Agenda is a shared responsibility. Delivering better means ensuring that every policy, every investment, and every partnership translates into a better life for
I thank His Excellency the Minister of Finance and Economic Planning of Rwanda. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Samir Abdel Hafid, Minister of Economic and Planning of Tunisia.
In the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor to represent the Republic of Tunisia at this high-level political forum, convened at a time when international challenges are increasing and the need for transformative and equitable measures to put the SDGs back on the right track is becoming even greater. Tunisia's participation this year coincides with the launching of the 2026-2030 development plan. We started implementing this plan. This plan is based on 5 pillars: social justice, making development more even across the different regions, strengthening and modernizing the economic fabric, investing in infrastructure, achieving food, water, and energy security while preserving a healthy environment, and modernizing the institutional framework while improving administrative performance. These pillars align fully with the Sustainable Development Goals. Ladies and gentlemen, Tunisia attaches particular importance to the goals under review during this session, as they are closely connected to our national priorities. Water is a pillar of national sovereignty and national security. Tunisia has adopted the 2050 National Water Strategy, which aims to rationalize the use of water resources, increase the use of non-conventional resources by increasing seawater desalination capacities and reusing treated wastewater in the agricultural sector. Regarding energy transition, Tunisia has made a strategic choice to increase the share of renewable energies in the electricity mix to 35% by 2030. And we constitute fundamental pillars for achieving sustainable economic growth. Tunisia is therefore working on promoting green and smart industry and increasing the added value of industrial activities. We're also working on keeping pace with the requirements of the fourth industrial revolution by supporting small and medium-sized enterprises in adapting to technological developments, by developing a national strategy for artificial intelligence, and by strengthening the ecosystem of startups and innovation. Tunisia also continues its efforts to ensure that cities and communities are more sustainable and inclusive. An example of this progress is that home ownership has surpassed 75% nationally and 91% in rural areas. Ladies and gentlemen, achieving the SDGs requires a genuine international partnership and a more equitable financial environment. From this rostrum, Tunisia renews its call for reforming the international financial system, strengthening development financing mechanisms, and finding sustainable solutions to sovereign debt burdens. The microphone has been cut off.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of Economy and Planning of Tunisia. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Hassan Iqbal, Minister for Planning, Development and Special Initiatives of Pakistan.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Mr. President, Excellencies, disasters, geopolitical tensions, and growing debt burdens. For many developing countries, sustainable development has become an ever more difficult journey. Despite these challenges, Pakistan remains unwavering in its commitment to the 2030 Agenda. Our national transformation strategy, Udaan Pakistan, is fully aligned with the SDGs. It seeks to accelerate economic growth, create productive employment, harness technology, build climate resilience, strengthen energy security, and ensure that development reaches every segment of society and no one is left behind. Over the past 2 years, Pakistan has undertaken difficult but only ambition, but sound policies and strong institutions. Mr. President, few countries have experienced the devastating impact of climate change as acutely as Pakistan. The catastrophic floods of 2022, followed by another destructive cycle of floods in 2025, claimed lives, displaced communities, and damaged infrastructure, and erased years of development gains. Our response has been one of resilience and resolve. We are restoring ecosystems, strengthening water security, and integrating climate resilience into our national development plan. The Indus Water Treaty has stood as a model of peaceful trans-boundary cooperation. Its unilateral and unlawful suspension by one party threatens the water security and livelihoods of 240 million Pakistanis and undermines respect for international treaty obligations. Excellencies, no country can achieve the SDGs in isolation. National commitment must be matched by international solidarity. The international financial architecture built after World War II must evolve to meet the new realities of 21st century. Countries on the front lines of climate change should not be forced to finance recovery from disasters they did little to cause. We need greater access to concessional finance, fulfillment of climate finance commitments, instruments such as debt for climate swaps, and financial mechanisms that invest in resilience before disaster strikes. The time for incremental progress has passed. We must act together decisively and urgently.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister for Planning, Development and Special Initiative of Pakistan. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Inia Karakasi, Minister of Infrastructure and Energy of Albania.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Albania welcomes this opportunity to reaffirm its commitment to sustainable development and to share how a small country can contribute to a greener, more connected, and more resilient future. For Albania, sustainable development is not simply an international commitment, but rather a strategic choice that shapes our path toward the European Union membership and the future we want for our citizens. Our geography has long defined our energy story. Abundant rivers have enabled Albania to build one of Europe's cleanest electricity systems, with electricity generation based on renewable hydropower plant. But climate change has also shown us that relying on a single resource is no longer enough. Greater resilience requires greater diversification. That is why Albania is investing in solar and wind energy, modernizing its electricity grid, strengthening regional interconnections, and improving energy efficiency. At the same time, Albania is investing in infrastructure that will connect people, markets, and opportunities. New transport corridors, ports, airports, and energy networks are transforming Albania into a gateway between necessity and a strategic priority. Our voluntary national review highlights both the progress we have made and the challenges we continue to face. Like many small economies, Albania must navigate financing constraints, technological gaps, and increasing climate risk. These realities reinforce an important lesson. Ambition alone is not enough. Delivering the Sustainable Development Goals require access to affordable finance, technology, and expertise. We therefore call on the international community to strengthen support for countries investing in the green transition by expanding access to climate finance, mobilizing investment in sustainable infrastructure, and facilitating technology transfer and capacity building. Investments in clean energy, resilient infrastructure, and human capital are not national projects alone. They are investments in regional stability, shared prosperity, and our collective climate objectives. Albania one that strengthens energy security, expands opportunity, and leaves no one behind. As we move forward, Albania stands ready to work with all partners towards a more sustainable, connected, and prosperous future. Thank you, and within 3 minutes.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, it's an honor for the Republic of Moldova to participate in this year's general debate of the high-level political forum on sustainable development at a time when global cooperation for achieving the sustainable development goals is more important than ever. In recent years, the Republic of Moldova has faced significant challenges, including the consequences of the war of aggression against Ukraine, the energy crisis, inflationary pressures, and structural vulnerabilities. Despite these difficulties, we have continued to advance reforms, strengthen democratic institutions, and invest in people through improved education, healthcare, social protection, and public services. Mr. President, this year we are honored to present our secondary voluntary national review on the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals. It highlights progress achieved in reducing poverty, strengthening social protection system, expanding access to essential services, promoting gender equality, and integrating sustainable development principles into public policies. At the same time, it transparently acknowledges the challenges that remain, including regional disparities, democratic pressures, climate change, and the need to accelerate both the green and digital transitions. A central element of our efforts, it is the alignment of 2030 agenda with the European accession process. We view these two agendas as mutually reinforcing. Both are driven by the same vision, building a democratic, resilient, prosperous society where everyone could thrive and where no one is left behind. Distinguished delegates, the Republic of Moldova experience demonstrate that progress is possible when public policies are evidence-based, institutions cooperate effectively, and citizens are actively engaged in decision-making process. At the same time, successful implementation of the SDG depends on the strong international partnerships and continued support for countries facing complex development challenges. Our participation at this forum is also an opportunity to listen, learn, and share experiences. We firmly believe that accelerating progress towards SDGs requires renewed multilateralism, shared responsibility, and strengthened cooperation between governments, international organizations, civil society, and private sector. The Republic of Moldova remains committed and responsible partner in advancing sustainable development. We will continue to invest in people, strengthen democratic institutions, pursue policies to promote social cohesion,
Republic of Moldova. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Reseli Sitoi Matalanaena, Minister of Finance of Lesotho.
Mr. President, Excellencies, distinguished guests, the Kingdom of Lesotho reaffirms its commitment to the global development aspirations in the remaining period of Agenda 2030. Our country has advanced reforms in enterprise development, trade facilitation, public financial management, youth empowerment, and renewable energy expansion, while also expanding investments in climate resilience, digital transformation, and social protection, access to water and sanitation, education, and agricultural modernization. As a result of these initiatives, the country's poverty declined from 56% to 49.7% between 2017 and 2024, reflecting a steady progress. However, economic transformation remains limited, youth unemployment remains high at 38%, climate-related shocks and persistent inequality continues to constrain broader transformation. Lesotho's economy continues to navigate a period of constrained growth, with GDP growth estimated at 1.5% in 2025, with a target of 5.5% in 2028. On SDG 6, the country has made notable progress in expanding access to safe drinking water. The proportion of households using safe drinking water sources has increased significantly from 71% to 82% in 2024. On SDG 7, the country has made important progress in strengthening domestic electricity generation and improving the reliability of energy supply. Significant milestones are particularly due to the participation in Mission 300, which reinforced national commitments towards investing heavily in infrastructure as a driver of economic transformation, regional integration, and climate resilience. Strategic investments are strengthening water and energy security, complement of roads. Implementation of SDG 11 has focused on strengthening urban governance, promoting improved access to adequate housing, modernizing land and climate adaptation and mitigation. And since 2025, VNR, Lesotho has continued to strengthen its financing architecture and
Microphone is already cut off, Excellency. Sorry for that. And so I thank His Excellency, Her Excellency, the Minister of Finance of Lesotho. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Faisal bin Fadil Al Ibrahim, Minister of Economy and Planning of Saudi Arabia.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Uncertainty increasing. These phrases do indeed describe our world today, but it also describes the world a year ago and 10 years ago and 100 years ago. Development was never a journey that is free of challenges, but a journey that comes among crises and challenges. The future of countries is not based on circumstances, but based on the decisions that it takes or does not take to deal with these circumstances. 10 years ago, under the leadership of His Majesty the King and the Crown and the Saudi Vision 2030 as a national framework for comprehensive transformation. Through that, sustainable development was present in our priorities, our design of policies, and our direction of investments and measuring impact. And based on that, we have our third VNR, which will review our journey of continuous work, which will emphasize that what has been achieved is a chapter as part of a continued journey of development. After a period of vast reform, we now have more knowledge and more experience. To define ambitions for a more sustainable future, but global progress, though it has been important, is still below the desired level. The international community has a number of experiences and lessons learned that enables it to support international efforts towards achieving SDGs and to continue to work with the international community to support various development pathways and to raise the efficiency of resources and financing and enhances capacity building in institutions and leads to a more sustainable development impact. Thank you. May the mercy, peace, and blessings of God be upon you.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of Economy and Planning of Saudi Arabia. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Ruateki Tekaira, Minister of Education of Kiribati.
President, Chair of the ECOSOC, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, from the Benin Maori. It is an honor to address this ministerial forum and to extend warm greetings from the government and people of Kiribati. At this critical moment in our shared global journey, countries large and small are facing increasingly complex and interconnected challenges. Climate impacts are intensifying, economic pressures are constraining national capacities, and inequalities continue those most in need. For Kiribati, this challenge will reflect our daily realities. As a small island developing state, we face unique vulnerabilities arising from climate change, geographic isolation, and limited resources. These pressures constrain our ability to invest in critical infrastructure, strengthen essential services, and accelerate progress towards the sustainable development goals. This is why strengthened international cooperation, access to finance, capacity building, and partnership there to the realities of SID remain essential as highlighted in the Antigua and Barbuda agenda for SID. Kiribati remains committed to advancing resilience and inclusive development. We continue to invest in sustainable energy, water and sanitation, resilient infrastructure, transport, digital connectivity, and innovation. Through improved infrastructure planning, connectivity, and community development, we are working to ensure that our people, particularly those now outside and densely populated outer communities, have access to safe, inclusive, and sustainable living environments. Excellencies, for small progress across all the sustainable development goals and ensure that no country is left behind. At the target year of 2030 draws nearer, we must all rise together with great ambition and determination and with a strong spirit of cooperation and collaboration at all levels. Throughout our second voluntary national review, we take stock of the progress achieved, acknowledge the challenge that remains, and reaffirm our commitment to implementing the 2030 agenda. Kiribati stands ready to work with our partners to advance transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated action toward a resilient, sustainable future for all. Kamdab. Ake arao, aina buokai, Kiribati, komenaya. Thank you.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister of Education of Kiribati. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Kitila Mkumbo, Minister of State, President Office Planning and Investment of United Republic of Tanzania.
Mr. President, Excellencies, Tanzania is honored to present its third voluntary national review, highlighting the progress we have made in advancing sustainable development and implementing the SDGs. Despite a challenging global environment marked by economic uncertainties, climate change, and geopolitical tensions, Tanzania has continued to make steady progress across a wide range of SDGs. We have expanded access to clean water and sanitation, strengthened healthcare services, improved access to quality education, increased electricity connectivity, accelerated digital transformation, invested in strategic infrastructure, and enhanced domestic resource mobilization and institutional capacity. Recognizing that the SDGs extend beyond 2030, Tanzania has recently launched its National Development Vision, our long-term development blueprint, together with the five-year development plan as its first implementation framework. These provide a clear roadmap for sustaining progress on the SDGs, while advancing inclusive, resilient, and sustainable economic transformation. Our priorities under this new framework include agricultural modernization, industrial development, the blue economy, climate change resilience, digital transformation, human capital development, and stronger domestic resource mobilization. Through these strategic investments, we aim to create productive employment, raise household incomes, expand value addition, and improve the quality of life for all Tanzanians, ensuring that no one is left behind. Mr. President, while national commitment remains indispensable, the successful achievement of the SDGs also depends on strengthening international cooperation. The widening financing gap continues to pose one of the greatest obstacles to implementation, particularly to developing countries. Tanzania therefore calls for the full implementation of the commitments contained in the political declaration adopted by the General Assembly in 2023. In particular, we support the Secretary General's SDG stimulus, including measures to reduce the high cost of borrowing, address growing debt vulnerabilities, expand access to affordable contingent financing, and accelerate reforms of the international financial architecture so that it is more responsible, inclusive, and better equipped to support sustainable development. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much.
I thank His Excellency, Minister of State, President of Office Planning and Investment of United Republic of Tanzania. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Joella Clark, Minister for Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Actions, and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis.
President, Excellencies, the question before us is not whether the Sustainable Development Goals remain relevant, but rather what we must do to accelerate delivery ahead of 2030. St. Kitts and Nevis believes acceleration and real progress require innovative solution building focused on cross-sectoral institutional strengthening and forging partnerships of ambition and implementation. Allow me to share two examples of important strategic partnerships and investments in energy and public health. Like many SIDS, high energy cost, volatile markets, climate vulnerability, and changing geopolitical realities have constrained our development. Today, we are writing a different story. Across the Caribbean, we are demonstrating that energy sovereignty through a clean energy future is no longer aspirational, it is achievable. For St. Kitts and Nevis, this is millions in investment in geothermal development, utility-scale solar generation, and the modernization of our electricity grid with partners such as the Republic of China, Taiwan, the EU, the Caribbean Development Bank, and the Green Climate Fund, all towards strengthening our energy security, enhancing economic competitiveness, and contributing to a more resilient energy future for our region. Our second lesson comes from an unexpected place. 2 years ago, we began treating crime and violence as a public health challenge by addressing its root causes through prevention, community engagement, and social investment. Crime declined by 75% in 2025, the largest reduction in our history. Our experience now informs a landmark regional CARICOM United Nations framework on violence prevention, reminding us of the importance of security to the Human Development Agenda. The success began with partnerships founded on trust, mutual respect, and a commitment to national ownership. When countries and partners invest in local capacity, transformative change becomes possible. This year, St. Kitts and Nevis presents its second voluntary national review in 3 years, alongside our first voluntary local review on the island of Nevis. Together, they reaffirm that through our sustainable island state agenda, implemented through our national development planning framework, the SDGs are not separate from our national aspirations. They are the blueprint for our future. That is what delivering better means, and that is how we accelerate. Thank you.
I thank the Minister for, Her Excellency Minister for Sustainable Development, Environment, Climate Actions, and Constituency Empowerment of St. Kitts and Nevis. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Riyad Mansour, Minister, Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine.
Mr. President, Excellencies, last year the United Nations marked its 80th anniversary as we commemorated a decade since the adoption of the 2030 Agenda, a milestone that should have inspired renewed ambition and accelerated action. With 4 years left to 2030, the development agenda remains stalled with less than 1/5 of SDG targets on track. Inequalities and injustices continue to that these realities are tragically evident in Palestine, where the Israeli occupation has devastated lives, destroyed infrastructure, and severely undermined many prospects for sustainable development. A joint report by the UN and EU has warned that the Israeli aggression on Gaza has erased 77 years of human development. UNCTAD has warned that Gaza's entire population of 2.3 million people has been forced into multi-dimensional poverty. UNDP and UNEP have warned that Israeli destruction has unleashed over 60 million tons of hazardous rubble and debris, one of the gravest urban and environmental crises of our time. Mr. President, despite these immense challenges, State of Palestine remains steadfast in its commitment to the 2030 agenda, as our people are determined not only to rebuild what has been destroyed, but to rebuild stronger and more resilient, guided by the conviction that the Palestinian people, like all peoples, can and will fulfill their right to a life of dignity and prosperity in their own homeland, Palestine. With time to 2030 working against us all, we know what must be delivered, prioritized, and accelerated, not only for the remaining years of the 2030 agenda, but for any future development framework. What is needed is justice, accountability, implementation, solidarity, and above all, meaningful action. And I thank you very much, Mr. President.
I thank His Excellency, the Minister, Permanent Observer of the State of Palestine. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Noor Al-Kulaif, the Minister of Sustainable Development of Bahrain.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the Merciful, the Compassionate.
I'm honored to represent the Kingdom of Bahrain at this high-level political forum, where we will be presenting our third voluntary national review on the progress made in accelerating efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals, with 4 years remaining until 2030. Bahrain entered this year with renewed momentum. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa has designated 2026 the year of Isa al-Kabir, celebrating the founder and institutional architect of the modern state of Bahrain. Recognizing the significant achievements that have strengthened Bahrain politically, economically, and culturally, and using his legacy as a catalyst for long-term national growth. Since the 28th of Feb 2026, the kingdom has faced unprovoked and indiscriminate missile and drone attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran, in flagrant violation of international law and the UN Charter, causing loss of life, injuries, significant damage to civilian and critical infrastructure, and threatening an environmental disaster. The diversion of resources to emergency and recovery responses risks impeding hard-won gains across several SDGs. Bahrain's comprehensive emergency response protocols reflected a very clear national mandate, protecting the lives and well-being of the entire community above all else, clearly demonstrating the principle of leaving no one behind. Bahrain affirms its conviction that peace is the indispensable precondition for sustainable development. It is in this spirit that Bahrain is proud to serve as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the term 2026-2027. Ladies and gentlemen, Bahrain is resilient and remains committed to its sustainable development model, a model that empowers people through investing in universal and world-class healthcare and education systems, in lifelong learning and opportunities, and in building an environment where women and youth thrive. One that celebrates culture, heritage, and national identity, recognizing that sustainable development must be rooted in values and traditions that unite our nation. For us, sustainable development is building a resilient, diversified economy grounded by innovation, inclusion, forward-looking regulation, investment attraction, and quality employment. Sustainability is securing our future from carbon neutrality commitments to strategic digital transformation and urban development planning. As an archipelago nation, Bahrain has always understood that resilience requires cooperation, agility, and adaptability. The tides of history have engraved in us the necessity of multilateralism, teaching us that survival and progress are achieved not in isolation, but through shared responsibility and collective action. Just as the sea shapes our shores, so too has shaped our spirit, resilient, forward-looking, and ready to navigate the challenges of tomorrow. With this enduring commitment, Bahrain stands prepared to embrace the future, confident that our path of sustainable development will continue to inspire and deliver for generations to come. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency, the Minister of Sustainable Development of Bahrain. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Carla Alexandra Oresto do Rosario Fernandes Luviera, Minister for Finance of Mozambique.
Mr. President, Excellencies, just days ago, on July 10, Mozambique presented its second voluntary national review, the most comprehensive accountability exercise we have undertaken under the 2030 agenda. What it shows is a country making progress under conditions that test the limits of what national efforts alone can achieve. We have fully integrated the SDGs into our 20 years national development strategy and the government 5-year program. Progress is real. Access to safe water has reached 62%, sanitation coverage 37%, electricity access 36%, and mobile penetration 85%. Early warning systems has been strengthened to reduce the impact of extreme weather events. This VNR is also distinctive in incorporating voluntary local reviews from 6 territories from Mozambique, including districts and municipalities, under the principle of one territory, one process, one product, alongside contributions from civil society. Mr. President, this progress was achieved against a difficult backdrop, including climate-induced disasters, the Cabo Delgado conflict, debt burden, and global energy market disruption, among others. We do not minimize these pressures. What we can report is how Mozambique is responding to them structurally. We have established a National Development Bank to finance strategic development projects, a mutual guarantee fund, and a sovereign wealth fund from LNG revenues. Excellencies, domestic reform is necessary but not sufficient. The cost of capital for African countries, shaped by risk perception, continues to constrain the fiscal space required to invest in SDGs. Concessional financing must be scaled up. Climate finance must reach the countries most exposed to climate risk, and the international financial architecture must be reformed to serve the development needs of all member states. To conclude, Mozambique will continue to mobilize domestic resources, deepen reform, and honor its commitments under the 2030 agenda. We ask our partners to match that with the finance and policy coherence that the transformative action actually requires. Thank you very much for the attention.
I thank Her Excellency, the Minister for Finance of Mozambique. Now I give the floor to Mr. Ahmad Mobodu Mahapat, President of the Economic, Social, Cultural, and Environmental Council of Chad.
Le Président.
President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor for me to take the floor on behalf of the Republic of Chad here at this rostrum, a forum for multilateral dialogue. We express the hopes of the peoples and discuss the responsibilities of our international community. Allow me to convey the brotherly greetings of His Excellency Marshal Ahmed Debiedno, President of the Republic and Head of State, who has made sustainable development, peace, and resilience the foundation of the reform of our country. The topic of this session encourage us to rethink our approaches in the face of multifaceted crises that weaken our societies. For Chad, that transformation begins with better knowledge of our reality. It is in that light that my country launched on June 20th the third general census of population and housing. This exercise is a strategic tool that is essential for obtaining reliable data, better identifying population's needs, and guiding public policies, as well as accelerating the implementation of the SDGs. Nonetheless, the challenges remain immense. For millions of Chadian citizens, access to drinking water, sanitation, energy, healthcare, and quality social services remains a daily challenge. Faced with this reality, our government is working with determination. We will be participating in the Water Forum together with the World Bank, and this translates this will to make water a factor of dignity, development, peace, and stability. That African Forum will allow each of our citizens to fully exercise their rights to water and sanitation. Excellencies, Chad is a welcoming country of solidarity that is now bearing a heavy humanitarian burden by hosting a significant number of refugees and IDPs, which are exerting increasing pressure on our public services and natural resources. We therefore reiterate our call to the international community so that together we can help these people to live in acceptable conditions. On the environmental front, Chad has been a victim of extreme meteorological phenomena and is playing a key role in fertilizing the Amazonian forest through the mineral-rich dusts that come from our deserts. Through an ambitious reform of multilateral governance and international partnerships based on solidarity, equity, and shared responsibility will allow us to transform the commitments of the 2030 Agenda into tangible results for our populations. I thank you.
I thank His Excellency the President of Economic, Social, Cultural, and Environmental Council of Chad. Now I give the floor to His Excellency Mohammad Abdir Rahman Farah, Minister of Planning, Investment, and Economic Development of Somalia.
Mr. President, Excellencies, it's great honor for me to address this high-level ministerial segment of the Economic and Social Council on behalf of the Federal Republic of Somalia. This event comes at a defining moment as Somalia presents its second voluntary national review at a time when the international community seeks to accelerate the implementation of the 2030 Agenda through stronger partnerships, sustainable financing, and renewed multilateral cooperation. Since presenting our inaugural voluntary national review, Somalia has demonstrated remarkable resilience, achieving historic milestones, including attaining the HIPIC completion point, the lifting of the United Nations arms embargo, advancing democratic governance through the first one-person, one-vote local elections in over 5 decades. Election to the United Nations Security Council as a non-permanent member, and the liberation of the strategic areas from the terrorist group of Al-Shabaab. These achievements have been realized against the backdrop of climate shocks that have threatened lives, exacerbated food insecurity, and caused widespread displacement. Yet, Somalia continues to confront these challenges with confidence, determination, and unwavering commitment to national transformation. Mr. President, Excellencies, amid declining global development financing, Somalia has adopted its national transformation plan as the overarching framework for advancing socio-economic transformation, good governance, and climate resilience. The plan underscores our firm commitment to national ownership and marks a strategic shift from a predominantly humanitarian response towards development-led growth. At the heart of this vision is a private sector-led growth supported by enabling policy and investment environment to mobilize domestic resources, attract investment, create jobs, drive long-term and self-reliant development. As I conclude, Somali's story today is one of resilience, reform, and opportunity. Our journey demonstrates that with national ownership, visionary leadership, and bold reforms, lasting transformation is within reach. We therefore call upon our international partners to further strengthen our partnership by translating our shared commitments into concrete action, scaling up investment, expanding opportunities, and supporting nationally led priorities. Together, let us seize this opportunity to
I thank His Excellency the His Excellency the Minister from Somalia, His Excellency the Minister of Planning, Investment and Economic Development of Somalia, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, we have just heard the last speaker for this meeting, and the general debate will continue at 3 p.m. this afternoon in the Trusteeship Council chamber in parallel with the voluntary national reviews taking place in conference room 4. Please refer to the live list of the speakers for the latest list. The meeting is adjourned.
you.